Nigel Farage has criticised Boris Johnson for suggesting to build a bridge between the UK and FranceBoris Johnson put forward the idea of a bridge between the UK and France earlier this week, claiming that the Channel Tunnel should only be seen as a first step. Nigel Farage said, "I'm sorry to say it, but the Boris Bridge is a really bad idea. In fact, it is bonkers." The Foreign Secretary raised the suggestion during an Anglo-French summit held at Sandhurst Royal Military Academy in Berkshire earlier this week. He went on to further voice his opinions on Twitter, saying, "Our economic success depends on good infrastructure and good connections. Should the Channel Tunnel be just a first step?" This came after Theresa May and Emmanuel Macron sealed a deal that will fast-track asylum applications at Calais. But the former UKIP leader is not convinced by the idea. Writing in The Telegraph, "I spoke to a Dover Patrol RNLI coxswain about it. With the considerable understatement we expect from brave men like him, he warned it would cause added risk. The biggest risk at sea's collision and a Boris Bridge could ultimately lead to loss of life." The Foreign Secretary told French counterparts that he thought it was ridiculous that two of the world's biggest economies were only linked by a single railway. Sources close to Mr. Johnson claimed French President Emmanuel Macron was enthusiastic about the proposal. But a spokesman for the Mrs. May said, "I haven't seen any plans on that." Friday, January 19, 2018, Theresa May and Emmanuel Macron attend a press conference at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. What was agreed yesterday, and I think that's what the Foreign Secretary tweeted about as well, is a panel of experts who will look at major projects together, including infrastructure. Mr. Farage wrote, "Boris's grand scheme is designed to show how much the UK values France, presumably in the hope our Gallic friends will fight our corner on financial services in the upcoming EU negotiations. In fact, I am just surprised Boris didn't offer to pick up the final bill, bearing in mind the UK government's agreement to spend £44 million on security in Calais this week. Such largesse seems to be the fashion." He also protested that Mr. Johnson reminds him of a headmaster coming up to retirement, desperate to put up a new building to ensure his legacy. Mr. Johnson has put forward the idea of a road bridge between Britain and France in the past. "I am sorry to say it, but the Boris Bridge is a really bad idea. In fact, it is bonkers." Transport officials have also submitted plans for the idea of a channel bridge as far back as 1981, but the move was widely disparaged and quickly abandoned. Mr. Farage strongly believes that building a bridge across the channel would leave many dangerous and potentially lethal obstructions, before going on to add that it could ultimately lead to loss of life. Bridge designer and former president of the Institution of Structural Engineers Ian Firth said building such a bridge would be a huge undertaking, but absolutely possible. However, Mr. Farage insisted the issues surrounding shipping would mean the bridge would have to be a huge structure, and would, therefore, be very expensive. He wrote, "Modern container ships, a huge some from China, have as many as 20,000 large metal boxes on board." The Foreign Secretary raised the suggestion during an Anglo-French summit Monday, April 3, 2017. The UK Chamber of Shipping estimates that some ships now stand at well over 200 feet tall from the waterline. The 53-year-old also believes that the Channel Tunnel is the best thing that ever happened to European exporters to the UK market, as the companies which send 12,000 lorries a day thundering up the M20 will testify. Bridges longer than the 22 miles needed to span the channel have already been built around the world. The Danyang-Kanshan Grand Bridge on the Beijing to Shanghai high-speed railway in China is 102 miles long. However, the MEP insisted the bridge would very often be closed because of the persistent gales and storms in the English Channel, adding, "What use is a closed bridge